Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Ikhambi Natural Healing. As we transition from the powerful force of nature known as Seth, in Zulu, ngesiZulu samkholim umbhidlizi. I'm still going to search and find whether that is the correct way to call him, but that's what is said he does. Today we have our brother Mukhaile again, Moji. He's going to reintroduce himself. He was here before, but he's going to reintroduce himself again. And then we're going to have just a discussion around this powerful natural force called Seth. And we are transitioning today into the powerful natural force called Maat, who a lot of people know. They've seen the image, but Seth abamazi abaningi kakhulu. Abanye bayamxwaya, they move away from the image because it looks very evil and it's very malevolent, the image. But Moji will explain to us why it is necessary for us to go through that stage of life so that we can transition into the beautiful, truthful, wonderful, righteous, just goddess of natural force called Maat. Whether we will see any looting and burning during the season of Maat, we do not know. But we trust that the forces, the African forces that be, the powers that be, may not allow such things unless they are absolutely necessary. So we will have some question time in the middle and have some question time also in the end. So for now on, me, Menzi Maseko, representing Ikhambi Natural Healing, I am giving the platform to Brother Moji, who will tell us about Wikipedia, will tell us a little bit about this Seth from his perspective. And I will ask just only a few questions. I'm just giving the platform to him. Moji, Wikipedia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, my brother. Dumelang lotle, dumelang kamuka, sanbona nonke, macheroni. How's everyone doing? My name is Mukhaile of Wikipedia. Yes, we're happy to be back. Ikhambi nilugulapa abantu. It is a space where everybody becomes a healer. So today we're meeting here about Seth we are humble. Seth is living, you know. And our calendar is alternates in between the 21st and the 23rd of months, where a deity moves in to reign for a season and then leaves around the 23rd of every month to make way for another deity that takes over. And that is just based on our indigenous calendar. And I just like calling it the original calendar, you know, before everybody else came and took and then remade it in their own ways. But they all come from our calendar. And yes, Wikipedia, like I said in the past, we are a history company. We collect history, and we use this history to teach our people why we do the things that we do today, okay? Also, we take that history and anticipate tomorrow. Tell people how we know what's going to happen tomorrow based on what we are doing today. So it's a very fun activity, and you'll get to understand it shortly as we go into it. Now, we have got programs that we're running based on the history that we have been collecting. What has transpired is that in the activity of collecting this history that we are collecting, we mentioned that two trends, I want to call them trends. Well, this comes from now from the engineering perspective I come from. I've already explained that I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so I practice engineering as well, and I'm a self-taught historian. The two trends that became apparent as we collected the history, we named them UCD and Square. Okay? So UCD is an abbreviation. It stands for Utatako Complications Disorder. So that's Utatako as in like your father. Okay? Complications disorder. And Square is another, it's a syndrome of sorts as well, but it's related to UCD. And you will see shortly how they are related. And then later how the deities that we have, come in. Maat, in collaboration, with Seth, Abu-Neptet, and others. Okay, or Osar, or Osiris, Asai and Seth. So UCD, I want to start with a little bit of history of how it comes about. Okay, the data that we have, Nkosi, suggests that everything seems to have been fine in the beginning, and I want to call it the beginning in reference to the time when the invader comes into our continent. So everything appears to have been fine. And then around 1650, a boat stops at the Cape, and a band of pale humans get off the boat and then experience our land for the first time. Okay. With that arrival of the invader species came an animal called capitalism. Okay, so everything was fine. We were in our huts and we were heading goats and cattle, milking. We were doing all sorts of things, agriculture, everything, astrology, engineering, you name them. And then these people show up. At the arrival, an animal called capitalism arises. Fine. Now, with capitalism arrives a change of a model. Now, the model as to how we live starts to change, because capital in this beginning, the original activities were mining. So they identified the minerals that we have on the continent, and they were going to go into the mining. But capital required labor. Okay, fine. So with requirement of labor, that naturally then meant that people would then leave their home states from wherever that they were, and the capital did provide for means to go appropriate this labor from wherever it was, to bring it into the capitals. Now, these are areas where the mining activity is starting. That's where the minerals have been identified, and they've invested now in the mining activity. The labor will be brought in. You'll remember a song by Brahim Masekela. There's a train that comes from Zambia and Zimbabwe, from Malawi, from Mozambique, carrying the young and old men to come and work on golden mineral mines of Johannesburg. Okay? This, Makosa Mati, signals the beginning of a problem. How, in numbers, men were going to leave their houses. To go where? To go to Johannesburg and work to dig the gold. And Johannesburg is just a model place we use, but this happens everywhere else. I mean, in Zambia, you've got the copper belt. In the Congo, you've got everything there. You know, this is now the richest country in the world, according to me, or according to also a lot of experts. You've got mining in Namibia. You've got mining everywhere else in Africa. When these men leave their homes to go work at these mining cities, they leave their homes to go to these mines. Now, when they are there, it is a long time before they go back home again. And while they're there, what you see happening is mushrooming of small homes. Well, small homes are interim setups where people cohabit while in a way of passing time. So they're passing time, but who are they passing time with? This is very important. Remember when the capital set up these towns, they also have built homes of their own. So when the men are at the mines working, they also require labor in the form of assistance or helpers in their homes. You know, the Europeans have never really did anything for themselves. They always relied on a maid at home or a helper. You know, that's the name I prefer, a helper. Now, Otata from the mines know saying in the suburbs. At night and in the weekends, they get to meet and the small homes start. Okay, and you know what happens in the small homes. It is just a matter of time before offspring starts to shoot off. You know, so in the small homes, small offsprings come out. Now, still, the fathers must go back home either month end or 2 months in intervals. They must go home to their homelands and so on. But of key importance, what we're going to focus on are the offsprings that are conceived in the small homes. They often never make it to their ancestral lands, these offsprings. This is a problem in itself. Why is it a problem? A person has got to occasionally go back home. Home is where one comes from. Where is home? In this instance, this would be where my father comes from. In this instance, you'd be where Cindy came from, where we all came from before our parents met in the cities. So you find this nation that mushrooms in the cities. What happens is not a lot of these small homes will go on to become formal homes, because in most cases, all that came in were married. In some instances, yes, others did take a second wife, as it's allowed by our customs. But in the bulk of the cases, they just ended up being offsprings. So what am I saying? I am saying cities like Johannesburg, Bo Kibali, what is my city in Zambia again? Remind me, Menzi, Bo Windhoek,
Lusaka.
Lusaka, they have become hosts of these children that do not have homes. They do have homes, but because of how they were conceived, many of them will never go back to homes, which is now, in this context, this will be now the rural homestays where their parents came from. We have a syndrome that comes out of that. We kasipedi rebitsa hogata mabala, right? A child must go back home to go see their grandparents, cousins, if needs be, uncles, aunts. A person does not exist as a silo. A person is brought into the world as a step in a chain of events. And we might just add, it is a planned chain of events, okay? So when we live in isolation, we suffer this syndrome of not belonging to a pack. So I am Moraile Morashwa today because my father is Morashwa. Nah? I cannot wake up tomorrow and decide not to be his child. No. To my grandparents. I'm a great-grandchild to my great-grandparents. And it is a chain of individuals that I need in my well-being. It is how people stay sane. It is, when you look at cosmic creation, we first exist as a concept, as a spirit, right? And that promulgates into a shadow of the concept. Now, what they are trying to do with me, because there's a universal plan when we live. When I'm conceived as an idea, before transitioning into the flesh and bones that you're looking at now, there's the world of the shadows, which I must pass in. And I like that if anyone watched a session by Joy last week, he touched on this. When we are transitioning into this world, we come past that world as well of shadows. And then when the time is right, because there's timing in everything, in the universe, everything is time. Everything happens to the universal clock. It's not just chaos happening. There is timing to everything. So when the time is right for me to come to the earth, I am then conceived as this person that you're looking at. The concept was that I'm going to be this person. I'm a male, and I'm going to be born in a particular area, and my life is a well-written, call it a movie if you like, okay? So when I separate myself from that plan, I disconnect from my source. The source that you disconnect from is going to lead to problems in life. So what starts to happen is you have got a soul that is disconnected from its source, okay? And this problem we call UCD, Utatako Complications Disorder. And that is where now it starts to make sense. We say Utatako because the bulk of the cases comes as a result of men having gone out of their own way, like men would always do. We say men go out of their own way to look for trouble, but in most cases, it's just a divine plan, and that's what it is. So this is not a case that comes out of men alone. No. It can be a woman as well. We have come across cases where a person has just never known their mother, okay? And although it is the rarest of cases, but the cases are out there. I do not know who my mother is. And now in 2021, I think I've seen about 5 or so headlines that said a child was dumped in a rubbish bin. A child was left at a bus stop, at a shopping mall. So those cases are there, you know. A child can be without a mother, although we know the bulk of our cases are those that just have never gotten to know their father. So that's the beginning of our problem, UCD. Children that were conceived, 1, out of wedlock, 2, at places they shouldn't have been conceived at. And I say they shouldn't have because as per our cosmic rule, children must be born in marriages. That is why our mothers, our grandfathers waited till they were married to have children. Things just fell off the wheels as this invader mentality gripped us. You know, we are of a tradition that says we must give birth to children when we are married. A child is of a man and a woman, not a children. Not a child at school, or a young man at university, or some guy, you know, trying to find themselves through certain things. Children are made to be in families. So when you are born and you're born out of a family, at the very least, be in contact with the people that gave birth to you. Like I said, the bulk of our cases are our fathers, but there are mother cases as well. So we have got to be in contact with our biological parents. That is the first instance. As a parent as well. So, for example, if I'm Mohail and I'm in Joburg, if I conceive a child out of wedlock, I must make it a point that this child does not get lost in the system. I have got a duty as a person that has brought life to earth to locate the child, introduce the child to his or her ancestors back at home. And there are ways in which to do this. There are customs and traditions of how we do this. That is why we've got issues like Bontaulo and all the other stuff. You must take that step as a man to find the child, introduce the child to his ancestors back home. This I want to say, and I want to make this point very clear. This is the most important thing as a parent that you can do for your child. Yes, it is important to raise a child, buy them nappies, buy them food, take them through school. It is all necessary. It's all important. I say this again. The most important thing as a parent that you can do for this child is to take this child and go introduce the child to their ancestors back where you come from. Okay, so that is where UCD originates, the children that we had at the small homes. I want to bring in a second syndrome that connects to UCD. We call it square. And square is a very simple syndrome. It's like in our modern day judiciary system, when you go looting at the mall, you're arrested and you're taken into custody. And then you're adjudicated through the system. At the point when you found guilty of wrongdoing, so we named this syndrome square because it's just going to be very simple to explain, okay? And here's how they link. Did someone say something? Or
No.
I heard something. Okay. Every time you confirm a UCD case on the left, you have got a square case on the right-hand side. Why? Because a child suffering from UCD, they suffer UCD because someone did not do something that they were meant to do or were supposed to do. So that person gets punished, okay? Because of them, because of their doing, there's a child out there suffering from UCD, okay? So each time you confirm a case here square on your left, you have got a case, each time you confirm a case of UCD on the left, you have got a case, square on the right. And now I want to introduce the deities here. So, but before I do that, square does not only come from abandoning children. Square comes from a matrix of things that we do and are wrong. But those things are wrong according to who? According to Maat. Okay? Do you see where it comes in? Maat Maat is a deity that we have, like that governs order, justice, balance. Maat gave us laws through which we are going to govern ourselves. Before the invader came and capital built systems, education, law, health, and whatever, we knew as people of this continent that we are born with a police officer right inside us, okay? There's a judge built inside of us. And there is a prison that we come with, built inside of us. And that is a Maat system. So before the cops came, the judges, the courts, and the military, we had the system at play, but it was not a system that you can point at and say, oh, that is a building at the court, and that is a police station, and that is a prison. No, these things exist inside of us. And this is, I don't want to go into the 42 laws of Maat, because there's a lot of them. We'll be here for the good part of the evening if I go into all the 42 laws. But they are a set of rules through which we govern ourselves as humans. We must repeat these laws to ourselves every morning when we wake up. And the people, our ancestors did this. That is why there was so many peace in the world, and these people ruled the world without firing a single bullet. They had their systems in place. They had it all figured out. So when a person wakes up in the morning, they must recite the 42 laws of Maat to themselves and then go through the day. In the day, as you go through your business, you remember some of the things you said to yourself in the evening. No, in the morning. And when you retire in the evening, before you go to sleep, you must audit yourself. You see, there was also the Auditor General, but it was not a building out in Pretoria. The auditor was inside us as well. So the system worked like clockwork. You could never fault Ura for this. This was a magical system. And I'm saying,
let me just add. Let me add something. Let me add something from my sister here. Our sister says, Maat sounds like our guilty conscience.
Okay.
But I would like to differ. But I hear where she's coming from. I understand why she would say it sounds like our guilty conscience. You say guilty consciousness.
She is right on the element that the conscience is what I'm referring to as the judge in the system.
Yes.
You always know when you are wrong and when you are right. And where do you get that from? From the judge. And in the invader language, yes, it is the consciousness. Well, conscience. She is right in that point. So this is now Maat, right? Maat is a system that we use to keep balance, right? Now, in what I've just said, bring in UCD least square. Ne? I am Mohail again. I come to Joburg. I father a child go Middle and goes in 7. And I live and Guluva, so I ran. Ne? The better 1-0, I ran for it. I leave the child Limbalida. They stay to struggle on their own. And Mbali raises the child on her own. This is now where I want to bring in Maat, right? In the difficulties and the pains, Zgambali, Numtoana, their pain does not go unnoticed. Their pain is registered in a book, Maat. And here's the beauty of it. They don't even need to go to a police station. No. Just because there's a soul out there that is in pain because of my doing, A case is open. Now we've got a docket. Okay? Maat then adjudicates this case. Okay, on the 16th of June, there was a rally in Meadowlands. 16th of June in 19 what? Let's say 19, let's say 2005, for argument's sake, 2005, okay? Umoji was at Meadowlands, met Umbali lapha, 1-2 weeks, isn't this a shangana, yabo? Mtotsa kopana, Moji asiyas ngani la, yabo? Left a child, Limbali, in 2005. Well, that child is now what, 15, right? Because Umbali Numtwana had to go through that trouble, that pain, a case was opened. There was a docket that was open. And Maat, as the governor of justice, law and order, adjudicates the case. Okay? And the case is adjudicated fairly. Okay? Let me paint a picture for you. Try and mirror it with the current judiciary. Umbali Nomtana will be the complainants, okay? And I will be the culprit here, the suspect. Call me a suspect if you want to. There will be representatives in this case. Izinyanya, Badimu, Madlozi, Agobumbali will be Mbali's representative entourage, okay? When this case is heard. My ancestors will be my representatives when this case is heard in the court, Maat, right? The case is adjudicated, but what happened? I know there was a rally and I met out things happened. And I had to raise the child on my own. The ancestors Zabumbali will be doing what we call if you want to mirror it with the current system, the aggravating circumstance that they had to look after this child in my absence, okay? And in an instance where I'm helpless and I did the most horrible thing, my ancestors will just admit, which is okay, fine, yeah, this guy did wrong, okay? And I'm raising this point because there are instances where my ancestors will defend, okay? And here's an instance, if you want to talk about UCD specifically. Say Mina Nombali tried to patch things up or did patch things up, but because of other factors, I could not. I was prohibited from being there for the child or doing the right thing. Because I have got a lot of cases where fathers could not be a father to their child because of certain factors, okay? That would be the instances where your ancestors, as the culprit, would come in defense and say, no, but Maramuji came, Gubombali, they sent Umalume, no auntie, to come and Bazo Shweleza La Payana. Umalume Gambali, send them packing, okay? That would be an instance, for example, where my ancestors have got a ground to go into defense, to say, but no, we have dispersed people here, and your people send our people away, okay? Or our child has been sending money to Lumbali. Umbali has been doing hair with the money, or all the other stuff that you would reason. So I'm just explaining an instance where my ancestors would have ground to come into defense. Because it's a court hearing, this thing. After considering all the facts, okay, Maat looks at all the facts and reaches an outcome. And this outcome is what you will call a judgment, okay? Now, here's a typical judgment. A judgment is issued. Mogaile is found guilty of fathering a child and abandoning the child. Okay? And this would be his punishment. I don't know. This punishment could be many things. Depending on what transpired and what kind of a person you are, and what the ancestors Gabumbali said and what my ancestors said, there will be a punishment. I'll give you an example. One of the simplest punishment would be that you would suffer certain things in what you're doing for to earn a living. For example, you run a business. It is, I'm a soccer star or I'm a musician. I will get docked points in that career, for example. You will see a musician that's so talented, but it does not live up to the talents that this person has. You see a sports person, a soccer star, for example, that's so gifted, né? But this person's achievements in this industry does not commensurate, there's non-commensurateness of the achievements when you compare it with this talent. So those
okay,
are
I'm hearing you, my lord. Sorry to Pazamis. I'm trying to find a way for us to kind of, I wanna bring in our audience members, because these are very important subjects you're touching. Yes. I would like to bring in our community a little bit, but first I like to do this. There are many players. I'm triggered by Ilo Kuzane, not triggered, but I'm inspired by the other comment from our viewers here, who says we shall be whipped for our father's sins, the sins of our fathers, kind of thing, But yes. I want to ask the question from the point of view now of the child themselves. The father or the mother has passed away. You mentioned the part of, okay, maybe someone was prohibited from performing certain duties for their child, and they pass away. They pass away having not done the things that they had sought to do, right? Yes. So now the question now would be, I'm thinking here for the living, for I don't want to use the word victims, but more like the offspring. You had nothing to do with the way your mother and father brought you here on earth. You are living your life, but you are prohibited by certain things that happened in your past. Yes. Right. So without further ado, I would like us to round off this particular part here, UCD and Iskwebo. And then, because I've got two other questions before we kind of wrap up, and we've got about 15 minutes. So I would like to look at that issue of Uguti, how then do you navigate your life and in the shadow of your parents' sins, right? Please put that, just park that. Okay. I would like to take Isandla Skanita. I want to hear from her side. What does she want to say? But I hope you got my point. You got my question very clearly, right?
I do have.
Yeah, the living. How do we navigate our life properly when at the same time we have to deal with the issues, abantu abadala who did whatever they did, and now we have to live with the consequences. What are the things to do in order to get rid of all that kind of shadow stuff?
I have your question.
Okay, now you got the question. Now let's go to the sister. Sister, you can speak. Yeah,
okay. Unmuted. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. It goes back to, and the reason why I wrote that statement that the sins of our father will be whipped by the sins of our fathers, and I want to piggyback right on Mkhulumi and Zimakashokanjalo, because but it's also the same question I wanted to ask. Biblically, we look at it in the concept of that the sins of the parents will be cast upon their children. Yes. So my question is, when we now then look in the context of Maat, does Maat hold the accused or the sinner at ransom for their sins only, or does he look at the holistic picture of the people that sinned within it? And I think it goes back to what you said, Menzi, because now I'm trying to understand it by measuring how we know it biblically and how we're starting to learn about Maat. Does he hold that person responsible? Because we know that bathi inyembezi zomuntu aziweli phansi mahala. So if inyembezi zomuntu zingaweli phansi mahala, is this now in its totality, or are we also going to carry the burdens of those that sinned before? We tina sina zono, marizono zabazali. So I wanted to piggyback on that from Menzi.
I have this question. Menzi, you are muted. You are muted, Menzi. Ish.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Those are two questions. Please understand, those are two different questions.
No,
now,
I have.
Yeah, but okay, there's a last one. Just to thicken the stew here.
Yeah.
I always wondered, you know, the reason why Christianity is such a big and very attractive faith for a lot of our people of African descent and people in general, all over the world, is because of the forgiveness factor, forgiveness of sins. You know, I would like us to look at this issue of Maat here now. In all the 42 laws of Maat, I see, and I understand fully what you've just said about the fact that the judge is yourself. The African way is that you judge yourself by your actions, right? So now,
Yes,
my question would be, Maat, or in the African way, even beyond the Kemetic way, ikhona yini the concept of forgiveness of sins? Because so that people do not have to keep running to sangomas or therapists and other outside people in order to deal with the issues that are actually happening. Now, you're talking about forgiveness of sins for yourself, the living one, and also, you know, the Christian faith deals also with forgiveness of sins, redemption even for the ones who have passed, cutting away generational curses, for example. So that's the question. Forgiveness, is there a redemptive element to Maat, a forgiveness element in the judgment?
So it's three questions, okay?
Thank you. So that's the third question, and that's it. Yeah.
So I am a child, and I was born, and I wake up to all this mess, okay? What am I to do for relief out of this mess? First class solution is locating your parents, okay? And there's no solution bigger than this one. And finding the parents and then being introduced into the family as a child of that clan. That is the first one. But in case you are unable to locate these people and are not in a position to either bring them to a working relationship or whatever, our old traditional practitioners had a way, okay, that I want to share here. This is now an alternative. If you have failed to locate your people, Abadala had a way. There is a practice of speaking to the people that you are connected to, but you either don't know, or you know, or you cannot locate them. Abadala would go to the wild, because remember, a person has got a soul. Animals have got a soul. Trees have got a soul. Abadala would go to the wild and find an old dead tree. Okay? An old dead tree, but the tree must still have its stem into the ground. Okay? This is an object or an area where Abadala believed that our ancestors could be connected at. It is like a zone where you can connect. Right? The only way to make your problems or speak to your people that you don't know, we would, for example, approach an old dead tree in the wild. Another alternative of that when a Menzi would be a termite mound or an ant hill. This is where our ancestors are believed to reside. Let me give you something. It is an old trade, and out of a personal experience, I can confirm for you that it works. Okay? And you do that as a child. You can't live in bondage because people are refusing to work together, or people are refusing to be found, or other issues. Okay? So that is one of the traits that Abadala used. As a child, you just find an elder that you live with, whether it's auntie or malumi, ugogo, or someone. They take you there and they ask for you. Like in some cases, we don't even know who the father is. But we must talk to his ancestors. And that's what we do. You see, it is one of the most magical things I've had to witness myself. It is a trick that a child has got as an option should they not be able to locate their father, or should they not be able to get their father in a working arrangement with their mother to help the child. So that is the first question answered. I want to seal that as the first answer. The second question says,
sure, you've got it.
The second question says, we are being whipped for our parents' sins. We are not being whipped, okay? In the case of UCD, it is not us being whipped, okay? It is us being in disconnect with our source. So, in a case of UCD, liken a case of UCD to a radio that is crackling and just needs adjusting on the dial. Because here's the thing, when I ask you who your name is, you can take this question very lightly, but I'm not just asking if you are Menzi or you are Mkhaile. I'm actually asking you where you come from. So when you say to me, Ungamane, and you call all of them lined up in an order, you are telling me where you come from, okay? And that confirms that you are connected to your source. So the radio in this case, it is playing clear and the signal flows through and we can hear the people talking in the radio. It's not a crackling sound. So when you see a very talented footballer that cannot convert that talent into actual big achievements on a field of play, that is a crackling radio where a signal, it is not flowing through. Remember, the football talent are gifts woven into your fiber by the very ancestors. So that cannot multiply if the vehicle has disconnected from the source. What you're looking at is liken that to a crackling radio, but I want to touch on who gets whipped, right? Guskwebo, the parent that abandoned the child, gets hit hard. So each time you sing a crackling radio on a field of play, or I'm saying, I'm using now a footballer that's talented, but they cannot transform that into actual achievements. The person that created this mess gets the whipping. When the Bible says we get whipped for the sins of our ancestors, it is actually a case here square. Well, let me tell you about a case that I had. A young man that I worked with had a grandfather that used to steal cattle, the home, inko, ne? This grandfather used to go around stealing cattle and selling them and then raising them as little children, right? This grandfather once took the homotsa, this other cattle, and this grandfather passed, that cattle passed, and that generation of people passed away, all of them. Yeah? You have got this child with talents. This boy is an engineer. Yeah? I used to work with him as an engineer. This boy would write off a car at a rate of 1 per month in terms of car accidents. Okay? And it used to be very mysterious to say, but what is this thing with you? What is this thing following you? And investigating further, looking further into this thing, a prophet, well, this is the type of case that would typically need a tactician, okay, a seer or a prophet. What is happening with you is a case of old stolen cattle. There's an old man that has come back to collect his cattle from your grandfather. So to pin that statement of being punished for your parents' sins, this would be a typical case. So if my father went around poking people in the eyes, it is either going to happen to me in return or my children. That is what I would like to say the Bible was trying to say. That is the context in which they were talking. And I want to seal that as a response to my second question. Okay? The third issue speaks to redemption, forgiveness. Yes, when I do wrong, I gave birth to a child lapayana and ran for it. Okay? When we devised this therapy that we call Ekaya therapy, the data that we've been collecting confirms that yes, there is forgiveness in our practices. There are requirements to being forgiven. One of the most important one is for you to see the wrong and acknowledge it as a person. Okay, I've done wrong, lapayana, kwa Maseko, and that is wrong. That is now you acknowledging it. You must take yourself as a person, as the culprit, through the process of forgiving yourself first. Okay? You forgive yourself because you acknowledge that you did wrong and you're only human. After forgiving yourself, you have got a requirement to approach Baga Maseko Lapayani Middlelands to say, Baga Maseko, I have done wrong to your child. I have done wrong to you. I am here to apologize. Ribitsaeng ukupatshwarelo ka Setswana ngesinguni siyashweleza. Okay? Bakwa Maseko will say, hey, Shiano, Bakwa Mkhashwa siyanizwa, we can hear you. Bekani imbuzi la phansi, or inkomo, or whatever. Okay? And then, because I mean, in our traditions, it won't be me there, Maseko, talking. It will be my uncles or aunts and the people that I've dispersed, my entourage, to go and do this, to work for me. Once Bakwa Maseko tables their requirement and Bakwa Mkhashwa accede to that and do good by it, there is channels that open through which forgiveness can be received. Yes, a person can be forgiven for having done wrong, but there are requirements. And those are the typical requirements. In the case I was using as an example, yakwa Maseko ezone 7. So yes, you can
No,
be
ngiyakuzwa.
even.
No,
Now,
ngiyakuzwa.
yes,
So now, okay, you've sufficiently answered the 3 questions. Now, I would like us to, as a final kind of topic, I would like to understand ilokuzane, the issue of a different issue besides outside of the. I know this is the work of Wikipedia specifically,
yeah,
but I would like us to look at something outside of these relationships, just on a national level, or on a you know, looking outside. You can complete the issue of Squabo and all that, you know. But I would like us to touch as a last point something to do with the spirit of Seth transitioning into Maat. Does it have any national connotations or denotations, so to speak? But before you answer that, I would like you to first conclude this issue of the interpersonal relationships and the things that needs to be done or undone. You know, you've answered the 3 questions quite sufficiently, but I hope you're getting my point. I am saying conclude this issue of the interpersonal relationships, the parent to child issues, which are very important because the family, of course, makes up the nation. You know, the family makes up the community, and the community makes up the nation.
yes.
What would be your view of the national question from the Seth and Maat transition?
Okay.
I hope I'm clear.
Yes, but I need to start it at where I am now, giving you how Seth works with Maat, and then I'll go to the national level of it.
Not a problem. Please continue, even if you don't see me.
Once Maat has reached her judgment, she issues the judgment. And like I said, Squabo is a syndrome that comes to a person after they have done wrong, and people were left aggrieved, souls were left aggrieved, ancestors were left disappointed and aggrieved. Maat issues a judgment. For example, there are judgments that are actual punishments in the form of, it could be me getting hit by a bus, for example. Okay. Who said, for example, once Maat reaches her judgment, Maat knows her colleagues in terms of the deities. So, Mosquebo, you would see Seth a lot being brought in by Maat to say, when I'm referred to Seth, I've got a guy called Mokhaile that needs to be dealt with on my behalf. And here is a judgment. Yeah, that guy. So when you see Mokhaile gets destroyed or gets hit hard, that is Seth in action, having been commissioned by Maat to level the scales. Remember, Maat governs the scales of justice. What was felt, Maseko is on 7, more or less has to be felt this side. So in cases like that, you will see Maat commissions Seth to come and deal with me. And trust me, Seth always delivers. Now, at national level, okay? At national level, you've got a whole lot of Mokhailes out there that does wrong to people. You've got politicians that does wrong to people. You've got capital that does wrong to people. And those tears, again, do not go unnoticed. And those cases are adjudicated. Once Maat gets to her final judgment, and this judgment happens to be destruction, Maat will bring in Seth, and Seth, trust me, will deliver. and you will see umsebenzi kaSeth when Seth is in action. Typically what we witnessed in the past 2 weeks, there's a lot of destruction that needed to happen for cases that have been adjudicated. Those things are not just people angry and looting and running amok on the streets. Those are forces of nature at play. There is certain cleansing taking place. There will be incidences like the COVID, like the Spanish flu, like all the other big instances that happened in the world. Those are not just something that happened in China and then people started getting sick. These are forces of nature at play. And the moment as a people we bring ourselves close to this system, very little will we then complain about what is happening, because they will understand that these are governments of the universe at work. Okay? And that's how you see Seth's work at national scale. But make no mistake, before Seth goes to work, he must be commissioned by the mother of all. Justice, law, and order. That is my take at it.
No, I get you. And it's cyclic somehow. It's kind of cyclic. Can I just ask? Oh yeah, excuse me. I put in there that the round table is on the 1st. It's not. I've just been corrected. It's on the 25th, as just a few days after Maat enters into the stratosphere, atmosphere, celestial sphere. No, your answer was excellent. So I'm looking at this whole thing as being cyclic. It happens in cycles. These forces of nature are like the seasons, as we are talking about. You know, when you spoke about the istimela, you know, the migration word.
In Zimbabwe.
Yeah, you see, there's a lot of cases of sisters and brothers born in Tanzania and all that through the ANC struggle, APLA, freedom fighters basically having to migrate into different parts, Eswatini, throughout Africa, even Ethiopia and Egypt, some of our elders there. Even in Russia, you have black children in Russia who are Zuma's children, Mbegi's children. I'm using them as an example, you know. But the issue now, I'm kind of going back in a conclusive way to go back to what you were saying is very important. That this connection between mothers and children was fathers, mothers, and children was happening both in Southern Africa. I mean, outside of South Africa and within South Africa. Yeah. So that disposition was happening. So your work is very important to touch on the element of healing, even within South Africa. Sometimes it was not even migration. It was issues of like ilobolo or no lobolo and chaulo or non chaulo, you know, those kinds of things. So no, thank you for raising it up like that. I would like you to give us the next 5 minutes more as a conclusive, some conclusive remarks. Excuse me.
Okay.
May I just comment on something, Uncle, before he concludes?
Yes, please. I'm going to open for the other 5 minutes for people to speak, to have questions and comments too. But please go ahead, Nkosi.
Okay. So the way that I've been listening to everything, it actually makes sense, you know, when Moji says we need to go back, you know, and find Istuguseget and where we come from and almost heal those past wounds. And often now, I think we've only been looking at the season offset from a destructive place. But for me, who does the healing kind of work in a different way, because there's always two sides to the coin. We learned that last year. during our book reading sessions, like there's always two sides to a coin. In as much as Seth is that destructive nature, during the season of Seth, because it requires you to almost draw within and not draw too much attention to yourself so as to not attract chaos, you are supposed to actually know who you are and take the time to actually like find out who you are, you know, like hence the season is governed by the root chakra, the root chakra, which is grounding and roots. Yes, grounding and rooting yourself in deep within. And now when you've done that work and now we're coming into season of Maat, the only way that you could ever disobey the rules of Maat is if you're not living according to your purpose, because the purpose that you were sent to will actually be that which will be weighed against the feather. Yes. Am I lying?
No, you're right.
No, you're on point.
Is this now me concluding?
I don't know if somebody else wanted to add.
Anyone can speak, whoever needs anything to say, and then you can go through, Mukhail.
Okay.
If anyone has anything to say, their voices to raise, or anyone else. But if there isn't anything, then we can continue with Mukhaile's conclusive remarks.
Yes. I think let me conclude and then you can open for the questions afterwards, if any. So my conclusion,
cool.
My conclusion in this session, Makosa, is it's two-part. Okay. The first part has got 2 points. So if you are a person that has created life, that is, you have given birth to a child, be the father, be the mother, and you are not in contact with that child, please make it your duty to find this child. And when you find this child, please introduce this child to their ancestors. Also, do good by the family at which you have left this child. Okay? That is the first part of the first point. The second point of the first point is, and get this clearly, guys, if you are a parent inside a house where there's a mother and a father, you are a mother. Say, for example, there are 4 children in this house. If you're a mother and you know that there's a child inside this house that did not come from inside this house, what I'm saying is, maybe in a weak moment, you went outside and conceived a child and brought that child inside this house under pretense that the child actually came from this house. You have got a duty to declare this child. And this is for the good. This is for your own good. This is for the child's good. And the person who you had gotten this child from is good. I hope you understand me, because I have got a case of a child inside a house that does not come from that house. And that thing is a mess. Because this person has given birth to children calling themselves Ungamani, for example. Kanti, this person did not come from Ungamani's house. And the danger of it is, from that point downwards, that belt is ruined. It is a chain of ruin that you do not want to be responsible for. Build courage to come out and declare the whereabouts, the origins of this child. So that seals the first point. in my second point, if you are a child, okay, whose parent had abandoned in the past, and you think you are making it on your own, and maybe this parent had tried to make contact with you, and you told them that they had left you and you are fine on your own, and all of those things that kids say, that is just anger talking at that point in time. You are not aware what is going to hit you. You cannot exist in isolation. It does not happen. It is not possible. If you are a child and you have got unresolved relations with your parent because of what happened in the past, please resolve those with the parent while they're still around, while they're still trying to make means to resolve this issue with you. You have got no idea what's going to happen once this person disappears. It is going to be a mess that you have never seen. And lastly, children or young adults, you are not entitled to having children. Children are for people in marriages. There's a reason for this. Okay, so we're not crazy when they said, get married and then you can have children. That is why, okay, if you made a child, you are going to marry that woman at that point in time, so that that child was going to grow up inside a home. There's a reason for this. That it is a control reason. You are not entitled to a child if you are not in a home of a mother and a father. Children are to be conceived by a man that has married a woman, and they will raise these children inside a house. That is where I'll leave my third point. There will be a lot of discussions coming out of this, and there's no time, but those are my closing remarks. UCD is a menace. The continent is a mess that it is today. And my diagnosis is that the bulk problem that the continent is going through is UCD square. One day when you get to understand what UCD square are, take a closer look at the continent. UCD square are the demon ravaging the continent to this day. The most popular resident of our prisons is a black male. This is not some fluke. It's not by chance. Pay attention to the events that took place in our continent and how it propagated to today. UCD Lesquebo are a menace, and please start paying attention to this. Try your best. And I'm not saying the ideals that I've just mentioned now are possible. All I'm asking is that we try our best. And I will leave it here. When Ngamani, I'll take questions, closing questions.
I would rather not take questions now, but we will have another session again. But in this session, we will go point by point by point by point. Sorry, Nkosi.
Maybe two questions.
We will discuss it on the outside.
Maybe two
but
questions.
The reason why I'm saying we will have another session. The reason why I say I will have another session. Okay, let me finish. So the point is, we'll have another question because other session, because I would like us to go question by question on issues, because the water has already been spilled. A lot of things. A lot of us have grown up in fatherless or motherless homes. So there will be questions on what happens after divorce, because divorce is a fact. We cannot keep saying, oh, in Africa, there's no divorce. There is definitely divorce in Africa.
Yes.
It may not be a traditional thing, but it happens. What happens in cases of suicide? What happens in cases of many different cases which are very unique to individuals and communities and all that. We will need to take some time and answer these step by step and give them the time that they require, because they are all very important questions. As you said, utatako, baba wako syndrome, it's very important. And yes, yeah, there's a lot.
There is a lot.
And marriages, I also ask questions about marriages which do not, where there's no lobolo, like civil marriages that are done in court. Is that considered a marriage or it's not considered a marriage? There were cows, but there were no cows. There was money, but there was no cows. There was tradition, there was no nyongo. You know, we need to give another 2 hours to these questions so we answer them, give them the. But last time, I must say this, Mukhaile. Nkosi raised a very important question here about Seth, something that we've discovered now as Ikhambi through our previous engagements with each other. The issue of this has been the season of going in. The way to go out of the trouble is to go within. But now you have elucidated and gave us even a method on how to actually go back to the root. You're going into yourself, but you also have to go into your ancestors. And you have to also use nature. You mentioned that there's nature. Nature is there as part of the resources that we can use to return to self and heal the wounds and move forward.
Yes.
Okay. But anyway, you can close maybe in a few words.
For those that...
Kulu.
Oh, okay.
Nkosi?
I wanted to reiterate something that I said even last time, just before Joy left, is that we need to start having a conversation about the divine family, you know, because Nayo Ujoy did the same thing that Mkulumoji just did. He brought in the whole concept of the divine family right at the end when we don't have enough time to actually go deep into it. But we need to go deep and actually have a special season, not just one session, a special season for the divine family unit, because even though people, they get married, we get widows, you know, we get things just don't work out as per plan, you know, and our ancestors have solutions for that. But are we really using the solutions that were put there in place for us in order to preserve the family unit?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Gogo, for that. Very important. Moji?
So in closing, you know, Nkosi, is yes, there'll be a lot of questions that comes out of this, and you know, when something has taken 600 years to break, yeah, it is not going to take 2 months to fix. The 600 years of work of breaking a black man is going to take more or less, and a woman. Yeah, no, when I say a black man, I'm talking about a black person. It is going to take more or less similar time to fix it. Yeah, it's not going to be overnight. So let us not be at pains to say, yes, there's very little time, we can take questions. Let us do proper work. Easy does it, as long as the quality of the work we're doing is up to scratch. Now, people must feel free to send me questions on email, on WhatsApp, at Facebook, or on Twitter, because this is, there's always this thing about each time you talk about UC Leader Square, new cans of worms open up. Okay, so yes, it is customary that I have to take other questions. Menzi will work on a session for questions and answers, but abantu that are in a real position that decisions need to be made, feel free to connect. I am on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, we are on
Please give us your details.
People can send us an email at Mogaile, that is Mogaile, Mogaile at Dakipedia.org. Okay? And I can take calls and texts on 082 4233 887. That is +2782 4233 887. And Facebook and Twitter are all Dakipedia. Engage, feel free to engage, and let's heal Abantu. Let us help our people.
All right, now we give thanks, Mkhulu. Nkosi, is there anything you'd like to say before we seal up?
Good, Mkhulu. I'm good. I'm so grateful for the knowledge shared by Mkhulu Moji. Thank you so much.
Ashe. Siyathokoza kakhulu. We shall see each other on the 25th at 10. For those, please join us. Follow us. You know our social media. And wow, I see a full moon rising right before me. Maat is pregnant. She is ready to come through. I can see. So we are very grateful. Come through at 10 a.m. on the 25th. And we will have a roundtable discussion and we'll have lots of questions. We will like to make it a very interactive session for those who will be joining us. Come with questions and then we will try to interact with each other very, very one-on-one. Mogaile, thank you so much, my brother. From the beginning, from the first sessions you did, you went straight to the heart of things. You spoke about identity and you spoke about a very scientific way and like an engineer, coming into ancestral work like an engineer. We need that. It's something that I always preach. We cannot be learning things at the university and we don't use them for our own good as African people. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening. Meditate, go in, use the herbs, strengthen your immune system. Go back to Ikhambi sessions that we've done before, and please just use the herbs that we've spoken about. I'm using them every day. Let's get alive and let's keep alive and let's stay alive psychologically, spiritually, and physically. We need each other. Thokoza mkhulu, Mogaile. Nabagini mabathokoza kakhulu. Siyabonga kakhulu. Good night, everyone.
Thokozani, Nkosi.
Ashe.